All right, it is the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for being with me. And we got some pretty good Astros news, I think. Some pretty good Rockets news, I would say. The Astros news is just simply that they're back on the field. Maybe some of the headlines are a little bit troubling. I'm going to mention some of the questions that I got going into the Astros season. I'm going to get into all of that on this live, but I'm just glad to be here in a kind of a post Super Bowl live. I don't think we've talked since the Super Bowl. I don't think it was that eventful for a lot of people. A lot of the conversation I saw around it was how boring of a game that it was. But I'm just glad to kind of be here in a space where we can kind of like really dig in on the off season and then also really dig in on the current Rocket season. And that's what really brought me here today. Because the Rockets, after watching them over the last couple of days or the last couple of games that they've played, they are now winners of two straight. One of the games you might kind of shrug your shoulders at, beating the Oklahoma City Thunder, shorthanded, no shade, no Jalen Williams out there. But I thought that what they did against the Clippers team that also is not the same as it looked the last time that they played them was more so impressive, not because of the result, not just simply winning the game, but what it's looked like. What it has looked like. And so for the Rockets now, the big complaint in their season is that the offense is disjointed. Their half-court offense doesn't really seem to have much of a rhyme or reason to it outside of just simply giving the ball to Kevin Durant, outside of just simply giving the ball to Alperen Şengün. But guys outside of that don't really move without the basketball enough. There's not enough plays being called. Kevin Durant's being overused. Some of the other guys are not showing up in the way that you would expect, like Jabari Smith, all this kind of stuff. And I just want to use these last couple of games as the small, limited sample size of what it is exactly supposed to look like. Not always necessarily pretty, but it has looked over these last couple of games. The result, the winning the games aside, it has looked exactly what it is supposed to look like. You're not seeing guys just standing around watching the ball. You're not seeing just like isolation, post up. You're seeing a lot more ball movement, a lot more action, and I think a lot of it is tied to the fact that Reed Shepherd is out there handling the ball. Reed Shepherd was thrown into the starting lineup with Amin Thompson being ill on Saturday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So he got that opportunity to run point. And it looked exactly, I'm talking about from the very beginning. Reed Shepherd was aggressive from the very beginning, was decisive from the very beginning, and was making really good decisions with the basketball from the very beginning of that game. And then I think you saw a lot of that transfer into this game on Tuesday against the Clippers. So I asked the question if the Rockets have found their offensive blueprint because now we're post trade deadline. We know that there is no point guard coming into the door, walking into the door for the Rockets. We know that there's not going to be like this deadline move. And I don't think that too many people are holding their breath for the Fred VanVleet stuff or for him to return, even though, you know, he's been out there and very public. And I know people know that he's trying to get back. But if the Rockets are going to come anywhere close to where a lot of people want them to be or where they expect to be, you know, championship aspirations going into the season, it's going to come down to Reed Shepherd, Min Thompson, and I think to a lesser degree, guys like Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., actually playing up to that potential. And we've seen them do that over the last couple of games. So I want to look here just at the game that Reed Shepherd had last night. 16 points, okay. And over the last two games, 50% from the 3-point line. Okay, averaging 16 points and 50% from the 3-point line over the last two games. That is after averaging just 8 points on 28% shooting and 21% from 3-point range over the previous 7 games prior to that. So you see, like, just the difference between how a guy like that plays when they lose and when they win. Okay. Amin Thompson didn't have the assist, but also didn't have the turnovers in the Los Angeles Clippers game. Okay. So, like, I think that the just the big part, the big takeaway is that watching these guys handle the ball, and um specifically Reed Shepard with Alperen Şengün and what those two-man game look like, that is the offensive blueprint for the Rockets. Like, outside of just simply giving the ball to Kevin Durant. I think Jabari Smith Jr. also deserves some recognition for the way that he's played over the last several games. Okay. Did y'all realize that last night marked his first consecutive double doubles in over 2 months? It's been 2 months since Jabari Smith Jr. had back to back games with a double double. He led the team in rebound last night, and also, was really hot early to start the game. I think he finished with 13 points. If I'm not mistaken. He finished with 13 points. I want to say he had 11 of those in the first half. So Jabari Smith Jr., here's his improvement over the past several games. Over the past 8 games, averaging right at around 2.5 threes made at 45%, after averaging just under two at 27% in the first 14 games of January. So he gets off to that horrible start in January, but now you see, after the last 8 games, Jabari Smith Jr. is also settling in. So what is the offensive blueprint? Aside from just giving the ball to Kevin Durant, which they tried early in this game, right? Kevin Durant gets off to a horrible start against the Clippers, misses. Once they starts off like 1 for 8, 1 for 9 before he finally catches on. Not the most efficient game from Kevin Durant, but you see why you would want to get him established early. But aside from that, okay, you got your shin hub, but then there's this question about the point guard position. Okay. Goes all the way back to the beginning of the season, the Fred VanVleet being out for the season, all the way up to now of is Fred going to be able to come back? What were they going to do at the trade deadline to address the position? This is how they're going to have to address the position, straight like this. They're going to have to address the position through the development of Reed Shepard, and then through the acknowledgement that their best offense, outside of when Kevin Durant simply has the ball in his hand, is some kind of two-man game between Reed Shepard and Alperen Şengün. That's when this offense has looked its best. That has been the difference for them over these last couple of games. It was why they were able to win in Oklahoma City, because Reed Shepard and Alperen Şengün had the ball, or because the offense revolved around them having the ball. Of course, Tari Eason had a big game against Oklahoma City, did not have a big game in this one. But it was all more so about what the offense looked like. And because the offense looked so good, I think it generated better looks for them. I think it's why they shot better from three. Okay. And that was a major difference in this game. Rockets shot 50% from three in this game, compared to the Clippers 26%. But those looks, I believe, are generated through, I think, sensible offense that they were running. It's just amazing how different also the team looks when everybody's making their threes. You got Reed Shepard going 4 or 6 from three. Jabari Smith going 2 or 3 from three. Tari Eason again did not have a great night, but he made a couple of threes. Alperen Shingun and Amin Thompson shot 50% from three in this game. And I like the one that Amin made, just kind of with confidence. I think it starts with a Shingun paint touch, but it ends up in a KD driving kick. No, it ends up in a KD driving kick, and Amin just steps into the 3 pointer. Not a shot. I know that's not a shot that people love for him to take. And it's not a shot that I think I'm gonna be encouraging him to take, but just kind of the process of it all feels like it makes a lot more sense over the last couple of games. So the starting lineup has Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Shingun. That's the offense that needs to be. Let's get Kevin Durant established. Let's establish our shin hub. You know, you got a men bringing the ball up the court, maybe, but we're as soon as we can getting the ball into the hands of one of those two guys and then moving around that. Amin Thompson effectively off ball. I think that's the maybe it took me 12 minutes to get there, but that's kind of what we're looking at here. We love, I think, the idea of the Amin Thompson paint touches, and I think that they can generate and they have generated some good offense. But Amin Thompson is best off the ball, and the team is better. I think the team is better when Amin Thompson is in the game and Reed Shepard is not, and going shin hub and kind of just force feeding the whole KD thing like they did to start this game. And then once Amin gets in the game, I'm sorry, once Reed Shepard gets in the game, Amin immediately goes off ball. And now it's Reed Shepard as the primary ball handler. Now it's some kind of Reed Shepard and Alperen Shingun 2-man game with either some combination of Tari, Kevin Durant, or Jabari and Kevin Durant as your floor spacers, and Amin Thompson moving around off the ball. And that's what it's supposed to look like. It's been kind of a story of like figuring out what to do. What do the Rockets do? What is the answer when a team decides that they're going to put a center on Amin Thompson and try to neutralize him and then use that center as a help defender? Like an example of like what the Spurs did with Victor Wembanyama, which is an extreme example because we're talking about Wemby, but also something that other teams can replicate, something that other teams can copycat because they know that Amin Thompson, especially if he's not going to be moving around, especially if you're not going to be involving him in any kind of action or doing anything with him, if you're just going to have him kind of stand out there like he's a floor spacer, then they'll live with that offense. Like they'll live with that offense, with that, and they'll also use that guy. They'll use that center as a help defender. So what is the answer? What is the counter for that? Well, it's to keep them in moving, right? It is to keep everybody moving, and you're able to do that more so when you've got Reed Shepard out there and you've got him out there with Alperen Shingun. So I like what I'm seeing. It's a small sample size. I don't want to crown them just yet, but I think this is what it needs to look like moving forward. And it is going to be fascinating to see. Like Reed Shepard is going to have to play not just meaningful minutes, but he's going to have to play down the stretch. They're going to need him down the stretch of close games. You are. I hope Rockets fans are ready for this. Prepare yourself for this, because this season is going to tell you a lot about how these young players are ready to respond. Okay, look, we understand who's at the top of the team. Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun. But your next four important players are Jabari Smith Jr., Amin Thompson, and Reed Shepard, and Tari Eason. Remember, I did the video a few days ago of how good is the young core really? That was a conversation about, or more so a point about the future and what's the ceiling of them, like past the Kevin Durant era, let's say. But I do think that they are good enough and have shown that they are good enough to be the supporting cast of Kevin Durant to get you to at least get you a playoff series. To at least get you a playoff series, and we see from there. The question is, can they play consistently enough? Can they be consistent enough? Can the Rockets' young core be as consistent or consistently be as good as they were against the Thunder, the shorthanded Thunder on Saturday, and the quitting Clippers on Tuesday? And I say this because it's not like we haven't seen these guys like have big games against some of Reed Shepard's best games have been against the best teams. So we know he can play up to that competition. We've seen Jabari Smith Jr. play well against some of the best teams. Tari Eason is somebody who, like, I feel like you can expect the type of effort and all of the things that he does well. It doesn't matter if he's scoring 20 plus like he did against OKC, or if he's going 2 of 10 and only scoring 6 like he did against the Clippers. Like, the 25 to 30 minutes that he's going to give you, and he played close to 30 last night, they're going to be quality minutes. Amin Thompson, like, his performance has been really good. I think his question, the big question with him, has been more so about fit and usage, and what exactly do the Rockets know what to do with Amin Thompson, and does Amin Thompson have a full grasp for who and what he is? You know, he's doing this. I was thinking about this yesterday. Amin Thompson is doing this real. He's walking this real tightrope of fitting in and standing out, because he is a very unique player. Think about how good you got to be an NBA guard, wing and or guard, with no jump shot, with no ability to shoot the ball. How good you got to be. But that's a peculiar skill set. But he also stands out for all of the things that he's able to do on the floor that everybody else just cannot. And so how do you fit that? How do you fit this force into a system, into a scheme? And then certainly, what does it look like when there doesn't even appear to be a scheme or a system? Which was the issue in games prior to the last two, when Amin was sick against the Thunder, and all of a sudden things looked a whole lot better with Reed Shepard out there kind of running the show. And then in this game, when Amin is back, but it's mostly, you know, when it's just Amin out there with no Reed, it's KD ISOs, it's Shin Hub. And then when Reed's out there, you're getting more of the traditional kind of ball dominant point guard, facilitator sort of thing going. And Reed's got a ways to go too. I think I said that earlier. I'm not trying to crown anybody for like, oh man, this just looks amazing. It looks rough sometimes. Reed makes some I think he is like he's a smart player, but he makes some bad passes sometimes. And the decision making isn't always great. But I asked Kevin Durant about this last night. I asked Ime Udoka about this last night. I asked Reed and the men about this last night. And one of the things that Durant and Udoka mentioned was their patience. And I think Reed Amin doesn't have a lot of words for us after these games. I'm just gonna tell y'all that now in case y'all haven't even noticed that already. But the common thread and theme was the patience and the decision making and the process. And just how much better it looks. Appreciate wing version and wing version asked, is Amin Thompson a max contract player? I think this is a great question, kind of going back to my point about how unique of a player he is. Like, it's not like you can build, he hasn't shown that he is the type of player right now that you can build like an offensive system around. And normally when you think about a max player, that's usually what you think about. But he is elite. I don't really want to hear much about, some of this conversation I've seen about his defense taking a step back this year. He's doing a lot more, and I think the team itself is not as strong defensively now, especially with the injuries. But this is a perennial all defensive guy. Like, he should be on the all defensive team every season for as long as he's healthy and able to play. So, I mean, Wings, it's hard to say that he is, and he's hasn't been an all NBA guy or an all star yet. So max contract, I don't know, but he's definitely getting an extension. What does the extension look like? That's going to be fascinating. I think that's going to be really interesting to look at. I did the video again last week about how good is the young core really? How good is the young core really? And this was at the heart of my question of, like, who are you building? You got Shingun, who you're building around, but is that enough? Is it enough? You got Amin Thompson, who is a stud, a star even, but is it enough? You're gonna need more than that. So I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that. He's definitely getting a contract extension though. Appreciate you, Heath, for dropping through, and appreciate everybody for coming in. I do want to get to these Astros points, and that was a big part of why I wanted to get in here as well. I'm gonna be back at Toyota Center for the back to back, for the back end of the back to back. I figured I'd do both games before the All Star break, just kind of get a sense, get a feel for the vibes, and if they're gonna be playing well going into the All Star break, um, I wanna be able to chronicle that. So I'll be back out there. But I did want to get to a couple of these points about the Astros, because the big news I think so far, and we had seen this in the days leading into spring training from Buster Olney at ESPN, was about Josh Hader and him having some kind of setback. Okay, and that's really where we are now, kind of going into spring training. Was okay. Well, let's hear from Josh Hader. Let's see what Josh Hader has to say about everything. And he's got some kind of biceps inflammation. He mentioned to them about throwing a change up in a bullpen, and kind of just feeling this pain, and turns out to be biceps inflammation. The official news on that is that his status for opening day is unclear. Look, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that, but that's got to be concerning for certainly for Joe Espada, but definitely for Astros fans as well, when you consider that Espada has a big job on his hands on how he manages this pitching staff, especially in the um, like in the in the early parts of this season. Like I think they're going to play something like 28 games and or 27 games in 29 days or something ridiculous like that to start the season. And so that's the whole part of the whole reason for um, the 6-man rotation. That's the whole thing about what does the bullpen look like? Trying not to um, needing length from your starters and trying not to overtax your bullpen throughout the course of this first month and first stretch of the season. And then you find out with Hader, okay, the big news, or I would say a big point about him going in was that you probably weren't going to ask either Hader or Abreu to get you more than 3 outs in an outing, as you have in the past, right? Hader's done that in the past when he first got here. That was kind of a question. Is he gonna pit will he pitch you more than 3 outs? And it turns out he didn't really want to do that before he got paid. Astros paid him $95 million. Hey, I'm ready to pitch it however much you need. Now, since he's had some health issues since last year and now going into this season, this was already a question. And probably not even a question, more so of, hey, he's not going to be able to get you more than 3 outs. Brayu and Hader are good for 6 outs. You got to figure out what you're going to do leading up to that, whether it's your starters giving you length or figuring out who are the potential gems in this bullpen. Or does some of the surplus of starters, does that translate into having enough innings to eat in that bullpen? So that is a big part of the question. I think a 2-part question is what's going on with Josh Hader. Inflammation, haven't even really got started yet, and you got a little inflammation. Got to be a little bit concerning. And then those last 2 starting spots in the rotation. Chandler Rome mentioned this in his burning questions, his 3 burning questions leading into spring training. And I think that's somebody that's great to follow if you're trying to get news from spring training. Chandler Rome's out there, Brian McTaggart's out there, Matt Kawahara from the Houston Chronicles out there. Jason Bristol I saw doing some work out there. Plenty of coverage out there. I'm pretty sure Randy Mack's gonna be out there from KPRC. So a lot of really good people to follow. But I think Chandler's probably the best to read right now. And he mentioned the thing that all of us are talking about is who is going to fill out these last couple of starting spots in this expected 6-man rotation. You got Imai, Tatsuya Imai, and I'm probably butchering the name. I'm gonna end up getting it right eventually. But Imai, Mike Burrows, Christian Javier, and the news I probably should have mentioned. I think I did this earlier. The news of the day was that Hunter Brown was officially announced as the opening day starter. I think this is the first time he's going to do that in his career, so that establishes him as the ace. She got him, Imai, Mike Burrows, Christian Javier, and see Imai, Mike Burrows, Christian Javier, Hunter Brown, and yeah. So then, who are your last 2 spots? Is that Lance McCullers? Is it Spencer Arrighetti? Jason Alexander, who I think was, let's just say not the most talented guy, but is like a gamer, battles, a fighter. And for a while there, it felt like they just would win every Jason Alexander start. And so it was easy to buy into the myth, if you want to call it that. But he's going to be in the mix. AJ Blueball, Colton Gordon, Nate Pearson. All of these guys are going to get a shot. And then the question is, or the question at least that I have that I don't know the answer to is, how many of those guys can turn into bullpen arms if they don't, make the cut. So that's a question for me. I know Chandler mentions here that Ryan Weiss and Nate Pearson would be long reliever options if they don't make the if they don't win the rotation competition. But I mean, how do you feel about Arrighetti and Lance McCullers though on the back end of that? That's a big question. There's also the infield influx or the infield surplus, if you will, not knowing what to do with the Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker combination because there's just not enough room or space for both of them. There ain't enough room in this town for the both of you. I was just talking to Kim Davis on Chalk Talk a few moments ago about this whole thing. How it looks like Christian Walker is the guy that they're more so stuck with, but Isaac Paredes would be the one that I would actually think is the more productive player, and that I would prefer that they be able to have. But probably more likely to get something for Paredes on his pre-arb deal than you are Christian Walker uh, on his deal that is kind of a little bit of an albatross. So that part is awkward, and the fact that you brought back Carlos Correa, who I do think is a better third baseman, but that pushes out Paredes from third base. You're quitting on the Jose Altuve left field experiment, so now he's back at second base. That cuts out second base. Christian Walker's it only plays first base, and is a good first baseman, a good defensive first baseman, and in theory could be the player that you signed him to be. Boy, they've had some bad luck at first base in terms of these free agent signings over the last several years. But and of course Jeremy Pena is entrenched at shortstop. Where does that leave? But I saw something about Radio Friends. I'm not going to even call him out by name, but this was almost like borderline adorable. Talk about like, why don't they try Paredes out there at left field like they did with Altuve? And I was like, man, this is you want to talk about poor scouting? Woo! You want to talk about poor scouting, boy? Let's just say there's probably a reason why they either haven't thought of that, or when they did think of that, they thought better of it. All right, so we got. First of all, appreciate you. Um, I'm with Desh. Says subscribe, like, and appreciate that. So, Wing version is asking. Says Turkish media are discussing Ime Udoka's comments about Alperen Şengün being hunted on defense. Many feel such remarks should stay in house, not be shared publicly. Do you agree? Look, man, y'all got to take some of these questions in context, and not just you, Wings, but in like anybody who wants to be critical of public comments. First of all, this is who Ime Udoka is, and all of the players know. Look, he'll say it to your face. He'll say it in public. He's not here to sugarcoat it or to massage your ego or to protect your feelings. Like you're not going to really be able to work with him if you're sensitive in this kind of way. Like it's just not going to work. And maybe some people can disagree with that way of doing things, but that is kind of how they do it. Also, though, more importantly to this question about should that stay in house, he was asked directly about that. Like, y'all got to remember, especially in baseball and basketball, you get pointed questions. Okay, so the head coach in football talks once after. So let's see how many times. Once after a game, once the day after a game, and then maybe once. So you'll probably hear from an NFL head coach anywhere from 3 to 4 times in a week, maybe more sometimes, anywhere from 3 or 4 times in a week. The head coaches in the NBA and the managers in baseball sometimes will talk to the media twice a day. So they might talk to the media 8 to 9 to 10 times in a week, depending on how many games that they have, because they do pregame and postgame, and on top of practice and shoot arounds. So there's a lot more back and forth between the media, between in basketball specifically, in baseball, between the media and the subject matter. So that you're gonna get some real talk at some point. It's gonna be hard. It's real hard to bullshit through basketball and baseball media publicly. You're eventually gonna say something. You're eventually gonna say what you feel, say what you think. And Ime Udoka is just wired that way anyway. So no, I don't think, and I don't think Shingun is sensitive. To be clear, too, a lot of people are kind of taking umbrage of this on his behalf, but I don't think Shingun. I think Shingun is fine with being coached this way. You know, if he plays like shit, he'll say so. I think he's been. I credit him for how accountable he's been to for the January that he was having, or for the stretch that he was having after that injury, and not blaming the injury for some of his poor play. And he, I should acknowledge, because I think I got this far without even mentioning it, was also excellent in this game. We got him shooting 57.7% over the past 2 games after shooting 36% in the 6 games before that. He also led the team in assists. 20 times this season, he's had 7+ assists. It's the most in his career. So Shingun's been really good, man. But the big thing with that is that they need him to be better. He can't just be. The Rockets can't afford for Alperen Sengun to just be good. They need him to be great. Period. They can't afford for Jabari Smith Jr. to be inconsistent, or to not knock down open shots. And to his credit, over the last 8 games or so, he's been a lot more consistent. Why that right? He's been a lot more consistent. Maybe, yeah. Been a lot more consistent, and is knocking down shots. Royale Ivy, they were interviewing, I think it was Vanessa Richardson interviewing Royale Ivy, the assistant coach for the Rockets, at halftime, asking him about the half that Jabari Smith Jr. had. And I think he had 11 points. 11 of his 13 points that he finished with were in the first half. And Royale specifically, when he said his scoring is essential to our team, just a great way to put it. And of course, he would know as an assistant coach on the team, but that's just a great way, I think, to articulate it. Jabari Smith Jr.'s scoring is essential to this team. After Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun, it's Jabari. Like, and those are you're going to be your, the guys that you're expecting the most from offensively. After that, Jabari, you could argue, is your most capable offensive player. You could argue. I know Tari's one of the better 3-point shooters in the league right now. I know that, Reed Shepard and the men have more opportunity to have the ball in their hands and create shots for themselves. But because of the quality of shots that are generated for Jabari and his ability to get to spots now, like, he can put the ball on the floor a little bit and get to that mid-range. Some of those shots, whether he's making his shots or not, all of his shots, every shot it seems like he takes feels like it should be a makeable shot. Mid-range, 3-point. Rarely are they all that contested, and when they are, he looks like he's in a prime position to win the contest as a 6'10", 6'11" shooter. So just his quality of shots I think lend itself to him being their, you could argue, their third most important offensive player from a scoring perspective specifically. Like I think the creation from Reed Shepard, Amin Thompson, and even on some nights the 3-point shooting that you're going to get from Tari Eason, you can make cases for. But just all around, uh, or I should say, just specifically putting the ball in the bucket, Jabari Smith Jr. knocking down shots is essential, as Leroy Ivy put it, essential to their team. Reed Shepard as a facilitator and playmaker, essential to the team. Jabari Smith primarily off ball and maximizing his on ball opportunities. Okay. So not wasting those paint touches, turning them, those being turnovers or clouded, muddied possessions. Like those paint touches need to pop. The Amin Thompson paint touches need to, and they have lately, it feels like, have resulted into more crisp swinging of the basketball. Even if it doesn't result in an Amin Thompson assist per se, it was his paint touch that created the imbalance for the opposing defense. And maybe it even generates a foul, right? Like you just keep swinging and swinging it, and then the last guy to get it, everybody's off balance. He drives. That guy who's recovering on him's got to foul him. Like we've seen some of that. Amin Thompson primarily off ball, moving off the ball, and then maximizing his paint touches. Reed Shepard as a primary facilitator and playmaker, and specifically when they're closing the game. And Tari Eason just continuing to be himself. I don't have any Tari Eason complaints. Tari Eason's all right with me. He can go he can go 2 or 10. He can go 2 or 10 because I know he's coming out there with the effort and energy. I was saying this, I think, on the Rockets Collective the other night, and we're going to do another one of those on Thursday. So that's tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we're going to do another Rockets Collective. That's myself, Brado and Will, and Lashard Binkley. But when we talk about the personality of the team not being the same, being a little bit different, them not having that edge, and a lot of people have spoken to this, both in media and the team specifically, like Ime Udoka, Alperen Sengun. We heard Fred VanVleet talking about it, I think, a little bit with the crew, the Space City Home Network crew, Craig Ackerman and Ryan Hollins. He joined them a little bit during the second quarter. And that's a real thing. Like they miss combine that attitude and that edge that Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet brought to the table. And I don't think they've been able to replicate that. But certain guys that don't have that issue are Jabari Smith Jr. and Tari Eason. Like, those are guys that I don't really question that if they've got that edge. Kevin Durant, surprisingly, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but credit to him being this age and at this stage in his career being one of these types of guys. But Kevin Durant is one of those guys that doesn't seem to lack that edge. It just isn't quite on the level of probably intensity of, say, a Dylan Brooks. And Fred was just kind of the established leader, but like these are guys that's not lacking from. Tari's one of them. All right, so I'm gonna do another one of these tomorrow. I've already decided. Right around this time tomorrow, I think we started this one at 1:00. So let's call it the same time, same place, same time tomorrow. 1 o'clock. I'm doing the Rockets report later today. So if y'all want to check out the drive, I think you should do that. That show is actually about to start in the next 15 minutes. I'm going to be on that show at 4:40 doing the first Rockets report of the season. Now that we're living in a post-Super Bowl era, a post-Super Bowl world, no more Texans report for a while, at least not while the Rockets still got stuff going on. We probably will still talk Texans, and I'm sure I'm going to probably fill in on the show at some point where we go through this offseason. But you can just come here for that. There's also other content creators that I do think that I think if you found me, you probably have found by now. But I should shout out, you got The Locker Room with Landry Locker. You got Cody Stutes, Houston Football, and they do a conglomerate deal, SNL podcast or live stream that's really, really good. Of course, Sports Radio 610 is a really good spot that I think you should probably be locked into. So there's plenty of places to get it, but come back and check me out, man. I've actually got a Texans wish list. Let this be a little tease, and maybe we can go over some of this tomorrow. But I'm sure we'll also have like spring training stuff to break down as well. But I got a wish list for the Texans that I want to share with y'all. We can do that tomorrow at 1 o'clock. How I want them to approach free agency, the draft, the trade market, which I think is going to be like it's hard to predict right now what that's going to look like, the trade market, other than to say that because the draft and free agency are so going in, that you got to think teams that are being aggressive, that want to take big swings, are going to be looking to do so with the trades. And if there's anything about Nick that we know, Nick Asterio, Texas GM, it's that dude is not afraid to trade. So a lot to talk about. Got a final game before the All-Star break to attend and a breakdown. Then we get the All-Star break. Good times. Meanwhile, make sure that y'all are subscribed to the B Block Podcast. Make sure that you rate it, review it on the audio-only platforms. Tell a friend. Shoot us a like. That helps us as well. And then until next time, y'all be good.